15,000 Rand bail granted for the 27-year-old Bongani Mthethwa yesterday in the Cape Town Magistrates Court. He was arrested on Tuesday for his involvement in the fatal collision which saw 41-year-old cyclist Idries Sheriff killed on Victoria Road on Tuesday morning. Mthethwa charged with reckless and dangerous driving, also for driving under the influence. I understand and I appreciate bail is not a punishment. Bail is your guarantee to stand trial. He will be back in court in April next year. But I also appreciate the righteous outrage of not just the cycling community in Cape Town, but general citizens on how cyclists are the targets of reckless drivers, and in this case, a driver who is suspected to have been behind the wheel, intoxicated as early as 7 o'clock in the morning. Joining me now on the line is Neil Robinson, CEO of the Pedal Power Association. Good morning, Neil. Really appreciate your time. Of course, you're disappointed along with your community that bail has been granted in this case?
Yeah, absolutely. We don't feel it was appropriate. And again, we have to follow, I guess, the legal rights of the accused, part of our constitution, I guess, but we need to follow the legal process. Yes, everyone is angry about it. Everyone is emotional, and understandably so. We just need to follow this through properly. We've actually appointed an attorney on our side to help with the investigation. Obviously, it's a state prosecution. We don't get involved with that. That's not our calling. But what we do in this case is make sure that, you know, every T is crossed, every I is dotted, etc. And with sometimes the lack of resources that our prosecutors have, police have, it's not a bad thing.
There's a statistic from South Africans Against Drunk Driving that says only about 7% of actual DUI arrests result in a conviction, and so you want to ensure that he is at least justice done in this case, Neil?
For sure. I think it's actually less than that, Lester, because a lot of these cases are not reported. I mean, we often hear by the by in different parts of the country where, let's say, more rural, remote areas in poorer communities, you don't sometimes hear of this stuff. So, yes, this is a high-profile case. It happened in a prominent part of Cape Town, and we absolutely want to see every single perpetrator out there who's committing crimes on the road or elsewhere brought to book. Often we don't see the consequences handed out to perpetrators like this. We've seen it in the past in KZN and Gauteng, where people who have killed people on the road get off on appeal sometimes, where they go to jail, get a sentence, 5-10 years, and they get off because they've got smart attorneys, smart advocates, whatever the case may be. But we really are trying to make sure that this does not result in one of those. We want to send a strong message out there that this cannot be tolerated going forward.
Yeah. But I recall, I think it was in 2023, there was a Navy officer. His name was Garth Pasha in the Simonstown area. He hit 2 cyclists. He was charged. He was convicted. He was sentenced. Fortunately, no fatal injuries there, but 2 seriously hurt cyclists. He was sentenced to, I think it was a 13,000 Rand fine, a suspended jail sentence. In fact, his driver's license was then reinstated.
Yeah, this is the problem, Lester. We followed that case very closely as well, got involved. The problem is that sometimes it's not just one issue. There's a range of issues. It's a systemic thing around policing, sometimes the infrastructure, sometimes it's the prosecution, sometimes it's the punishment, and things get lost along the way, be it evidence, be it a chain of custody, be it a technicality, be it a process issue, and these guys get off. I mean, the chap who was injured had 7 operations on his leg to try and save his leg. We were very close to the family on this one, and they actually want to immigrate now because they're so fed up with the legal system because there was no justice at all. And cyclists have a right to be angry. I completely understand it. Every single time that a runner or a cyclist or someone walking on the side of the road goes out in the morning or the evening, it's a hell zone out there. It literally is. And you don't know if you're going to return home. We shouldn't have to live like this. We really shouldn't. And I know that the Premier of the Western Cape sent a strong message out yesterday as well. He's a cyclist as well, as we all know. And he really
Yeah.
is behind this whole thing.
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk for politicians, but we work very closely with the government around these things. And yes, it is a resource problem sometimes, but I think in this case, the accusers, I think it's the 22nd of April, they're reappearing in court. We're going to send a strong message out, and we're going to keep on putting pressure on the prosecution to make sure that everything is handled properly, securely, and we get the conviction that this deserves.
Neil Robinson speaks for the Pedal Power Association, but let me speak now to Aidan Erasmus. He's a cyclist, a friend of the now late Idries sheriff. Good morning, Aidan. Really appreciate your time, and I'm really sorry for your personal loss as well as for the loss of Idris's family and the cycling community. But what did you hear Tuesday morning? What did you do upon hearing that Idries was killed by a suspected drunk driver?
Good morning, Lester, and good morning to your listeners. I actually was on the scene shortly after it happened. I had gone out with our usual group, and in fact, Idries was supposed to join us that morning, but he decided to do what he usually does, which is do his own kind of solo missions, and he took a visitor out on a tour of that part of Cape Town, and I had come past there after the accident. Obviously panicking, my group had dropped me and they'd gone ahead, and I thought maybe one of my fellow cyclists were in that accident, and I walked past it and everything had been kind of contained, and I didn't see any familiar bikes at first, and then later on when we were having coffee, a friend tried to call Idris' cell phone, and obviously someone at the scene picked it up, and that's kind of how we heard about what happened.
And then you as a group then went to the scene of the accident on Victoria?
No, we stayed. We were in Sea Point at that point, and just we stayed there and tried to give space for the authorities to handle it. Yeah.
Aidan, I know a couple of cyclists. Grant, one of our producers, is active part of the cycling community. He often talks about his fear of enjoying something, doing something that he enjoys. Did you and Idris ever talk about the fear that you may have? Look, I'm a motorist. I'm a road user. I get equally as frustrated by other road users, including cyclists at times, but I think I live with a mentality that we share road. It's not just for cars, it's for everyone who uses the road. But did you ever talk to Idris about your level of feeling unsafe on our roads?
I think, as cyclists, we are very aware of our vulnerability on the road in general. I think we try, and we are expected to behave much better than motorists, despite the kind of demonizing we experience from motorists. I'm also a motorist. That's the funny thing about being a road user, is that you have multiple ways of getting around. And I think you move around with a lot of awareness as a cyclist. And I can say that Idris was someone who was very careful. I'm sure that he was descending down that road, Victoria Road, at a reasonable speed. I'm sure he was holding close to the shoulder. In fact, I've spoken to the German cyclist who was with him, and she was saying she was basically in the gutter when she saw the vehicle coming up the road, and she was just missed, and Idris was it. So all this to say that I think the kind of conversation around safety as cyclists goes without saying. We are always concerned about our own safety because we are so vulnerable.
You make a very important point because people who as I said, I am frustrated by motorists. I am frustrated by cyclists, but I appreciate that I share the road. So people who have this antagonism to cyclists also don't realize that cyclists are also motorists as well. And so they may even feel the same frustration when there is a discourteous fellow cyclist. And that's the whole point of sharing a road space. It's not for a particular mode of transport. Of course, there are far more cars on the road, but road spaces are supposed to be shared.
Definitely, Lester. I think I just two points here that I think is important to highlight. One is that cyclists are, according to the Road Traffic Act, considered vehicles. So we are actually supposed to be on the road. We're not actually allowed to be on pavement. And so motorists also just need to realize that we share the road with them. And secondly, in terms of the idea that cyclists are also lawbreakers, or cyclists also kind of take leniency on the road. The difference here is one of scale, right? Like, I'm not sitting in a metal cage.
Yeah.
If I hit someone, chances are they'll survive. If a motorist does,
and I think the most important difference here is this is against someone who was in a metal cage, which turned it into a weapon when they decided, allegedly, to get behind that wheel of their car while intoxicated, Aidan.
Definitely. I think also the other thing to note is that this is not the first instance this year. I mean, we had that instance with the doctor and Tumisa Lokolo who died. She was walking on the pavement in Buitengracht. We had that instance with a runner who was also on the pavement. It seems you don't even need to be in the road in Cape Town to be subject to this kind of road violence. So I think we really need a stronger response from the justice system, a stronger response from the city, and a stronger response from the state, really, around law enforcement for drunken, negligent driving.
Really appreciate your time. Aidan Erasmus, he is a cyclist. He's a friend of the late Idries Sheriff Hall. So thanks so much to Neil Robertson of the Pedal Power Association.